You can begin it. It's picking up the microphones.
Okay.
We're challenged right now with the audio part of it. I mean, the video
Okay.
part.
Yeah, the video.
Okay, so,
All right,
if you'd like to start, let's go ahead and start.
it's 1:07, so sorry for the delays. But we'll call the meeting to order and, Steve, you can do the roll call and.
Sure, Mr. Angoko,
Here.
Mr. Deline,
Here.
Mr. Mattingly.
There you go.
I don't hear Mr. Fry
Here.
And Ryan is traveling.
and Ryan is traveling too, so that's 2 of 6. You barely have a quorum, but you have a quorum. And, well, I'm sorry, I could see he's sitting right here. Yeah,
Okay,
so you've got 4 of 6 present.
okay.
Steve, did you say Bert?
I did.
Yeah, he didn't respond. He's on the call.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. 5 of 6.
Okay.
Just stepped away a minute.
No worries. Glad to have you back.
15 minutes?
Safety, well, look, let's make our safety minute all about information technology. Okay. And so we started this signing on process about 40 minutes ago, or actually now it's almost 50 minutes ago, just to make sure that we have all the connections. And lo and behold, the electrons didn't cooperate, and here we are trying to play catch up 10 minutes into what was the established 7 minutes into what was the established meeting time. Back in my old line of work, we used to have a saying, pre-flight your visual aids. Okay? So that stuff like this didn't happen. And then all we were doing was talking about one of those projectors that you put the slide down on, and up on the big movie screen, it went. But it applies more now than you would ever imagine it would. And what we all need to crack the code on is just how much time do you need to pre-flight your visual aids? So obviously, in a lot of cases, 45 minutes ain't enough. So that's something to pay attention to as you're going forward, and if you're responsible for these kinds of things.
Thank you. Any public online? Anybody on public online?
Answering who signed up other than the board members. Once I get the screen, it can give you I know that Brittany Kennington is there from Almar. I know that Lev is there from Petrostar, and I did not see anyone else's name before we, I think that's it. And,
Luke Hassenbank from
and,
Alamar as well. Yep.
and Luke Hassenbank from Almar is also present.
Since we have public, maybe Steve, we have public involvement announcement.
Okay. Well, the public involvement announcement, we agreed would be present on the on the agendas, but we would not read it. But I would read the board. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was the opposite. It was the board purpose statement. The public involvement announcement is the PAMP advisory board meetings are open to the public, and the public is provided an opportunity to comment at each meeting. Business items will be presented by the chair or the consultant. After the board discusses the business items, the public is invited to formally comment. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Steve. We have the draft agenda in front of us.
So you'll need a motion to approve.
Do we need to, but we also. We're gonna amend this and add the,
Yes,
go ahead.
a motion to approve in a second, and then we discuss the changes you want to make, after which we'll approve the amended agenda.
Thank you. So we have the draft agenda in front of us. So if I got a motion to approve the draft agenda.
A motion, please. Okay, moved by Ms. Wynn Pearson,
Could I get a second?
Second.
and a second by Art. And to your point, two requests I'd like to make. One of them is to item number 6 is approval of the minutes of April 14th, 2025. In my zeal to share some other information with the members of the board, I forgot to include in the read aheads the draft minutes from the April 14th meeting. So if I could beg your indulgence on that, what I'd like to do is hold them for approval at the next board meeting. So there'll be 2 sets of minutes to approve at the next board meeting. And in the read ahead email that goes out for the next meeting, I'll put both copies of the drafts on there. And the other one I'd like to make is on the current project construction update. I'd like to add a new 7A, and the 7A is an update on the POVI, the pending POVI modifications that have to be made to the stripping lines coming off the PCT berthing lines to the stripping pumps. So we'll give you a status of where we stand on that.
Yep.
And now that's open for discussion before you vote. If there's no nope.
Anybody have any questions on the 2 items that Steve brought forth?
I see Bert's got his hand raised.
Bert?
Yeah, I'd like to add the crane issue, crane status with the PCT, as well as the flushing. And then at some point I want to discuss, I'd like to discuss adding the PCT to the critical path for the project. Over.
Yep, nope. I'm right.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions, additions?
Any discussion on those
Discussion.
matters?
Okay, hearing none. We have the agenda.
Okay, we'll make those amendments. And I'll try and make sure I handle all of these things in sequence.
Okay.
Okay. So we're on
7A.
we're on 7A, the new 7A. The new 7A is talk a little bit about where we stand on the rectifying the issue with the stripping lines coming off the PCT berthing lines going to the wrong stripping pumps. And here present to make a presentation on that is Scott Lust. Scott is the lead for the Ports Engineering Services contractor, Michael Baker International. All of the users know Scott. He's been in many of the meetings that we've had where we've discussed all of these related matters, not the least of which was the flushing and soaking, which Michael Baker had the lead on, when that was underway. So I would like to turn the floor over to Scott to give us the update.
Okay, hi, I'm Scott Lust, the speech that I'm with Michael Baker. Where I guess I want to start was if we can speak to the flushing for just a moment, because that leads into the stripping lines. The flushing and soaking of the PCT berthing lines has been completed. The testing of the fuels inside those lines after the appropriate amount of soaking time has come back good, and the lines were flushed and the users were satisfied as far as I understood. That leads us into the situation with stripping lines. When they went to drain down the fuel that was left in the post flush, we had fuel that was inside those lines. When they went to drain down the stripping lines, or excuse me, the berthing lines, they opened up a set of valves and they drained down a berthing line that they didn't expect to drain down. Okay, that's the situation we found ourselves in. And we went back and looked at what happened and what was happening. And the situation is the stripping lines are, put it this way, the birthing lines coming from the PCT are numbered 5, 6, 7, and 8. Just like the birthing lines coming from POL 1. The birthing line from PCT, say birthing line 5, ties into birthing line 5 at POL 1. If you open up the birthing line 5 stripping line from the PCT, you drain down birthing line 7. Okay. Birthing line 7 and birthing line 5 are both distillate lines, so we haven't cross-connected products. We are draining down the wrong one. This was noticed when the contractor was out there working on it. We took a look at the design, and the design, what we have currently configured out there is what was designed. And while there is a way to drain down essentially both sides of birthing line 5, you have to throw a series of valves. So it's an administrative control. The users, from my understanding, do not want to use, they don't want to use the administrative controls because there's a potential to get the valve conflict. So there is a way to change it. And what we've done is we sat down with Marathon. They were out there when we were looking at it. And we sat down with the original design engineers to make sure that we weren't seeing something that was incorrect. And the design engineers went, oh, yeah, that wasn't the intent. So we have a path forward by changing some piping that's right out here, right out the window. It's not buried, which is a blessing. We don't have to dig anything up. We can make the changes right here at Povey. It'll take some materials, some time, and a shutdown of POL 1 for a finite amount of time to swap out the piping screws. And the intent of how we're doing this and what we're planning is they will shut down POL 1, make the cuts in the pipe that they need to make, pull the old spools out, have pre-welded new spools ready to go in, tie everything back in, and POL 1 will be back on run. So that's where we're at right now. Steve, does that answer your question, or have I now made everybody confused with my?
Well, there are probably some questions from everybody else, but I'll ask, my questions first. Not only does that put POL 1 back into business the way it used to be, but it also mitigates there being an issue once POL 1 is gone and the PCT is replacing it, that everything is now aligned to be done properly.
That is correct. So it will work like you expect. If you open up, say, for instance, the stripping line for birthing line 5, it will drain birthing line 5 on both the PCT and POL 1. When POL 1 gets decommissioned, then it'll just work for PCT. The other thing that's going to happen with this is while they're working on the stripping lines, because we have to drain down everything to make that happen, we're opening up the piping system, where at that same time we are going to remove the ULSD jumper in there. So because that currently does cross connect between gasoline and distillate. So the ULSD jumper and the pulley will be taken out. Yes. Okay.
A couple of questions. So this is catching up with the technical explanation. So the stripping line connects to the birthing line, or serves the birthing line on both the POL 1 and also on the PCT. So is that my understanding that correctly? But there's an interconnect issue.
You think of it like a wire.
Yeah.
Think of it like a wire. There's one connection to the PCT birthing line. There's another connection to the POL 1 birthing line.
Okay.
Downstream of that, they tie together, and there's one pump that sucks everything out. So what we have to do is you either drain the PCT, you either strip the PCT, or you strip POL 1.
So it's like one side of the wire. The other.
One side of the wire.
Are they both incorrectly, or is it?
No. What POL 1 operates exactly like has been intended and working. They've been working.
Correctly, line 5 drains line 5.
That's
for the
correct.
POL 1, but line 5 drains line 7 for the
PCT. And I don't know how it wasn't noticed earlier,
Yeah, that was gonna be one of my next questions, but I have another question that's technical first. So why do we have to take PLO one offline in order to correct the question of the Y that attaches to the?
Because of the way that the whole system is designed, the PCT ties into POL1,
Mhm.
okay? Because there was only so many connections into the POVI that you could have, and we had just enough connections at the POVI to run POL1 and POL2. When PCT was added, they chose to drop the PCT into the POL1 line, which makes sense because POL1 is going to be decommissioned.
Got it.
So-
I missed that. Sorry.
It has to work that way.
So then my question is, the next one is the why, how did we get to this far along without one?
Well, we talked about the iron.
Well, we can, yeah. I mean, you can explain it better than I can. I'd be fumbling, not having
The
been part of the
question was
conversation.
asked. Okay, the question was asked by the contractor. And they said, why are you hooking them up?
I asked the designer, why is that?
Yes,
Yeah.
but they asked the question in a manner that I had a quality moment on this over at Michael Baker because they asked the question in the wrong way. And the design engineer answered the question correctly. But what they did was they said, are the labels on these lines correct?
So yes, they are. They didn't say why are they labeled this way. It appears.
That's exactly it. It was the question was asked and, you know, and I have no history with with the original construction contractors or anything else, but I read the RFI and I went, and, you know, because it was asked a weird way. And, so it was asked, but we haven't had to use them. The PCP hasn't been online. And Udelhoven was the first group, and again, I don't know how it was constructed, I can have a whole bunch of supposition, okay? But they probably hadn't used it systemically during construction, because the only time that those lines had fluid in them was during testing.
Right.
And the testing fluid was water, so they wouldn't pump down the berthing lines through the stripping pumps into the users, because that would have introduced water into the system, which nobody wants. So they probably drained it down in a different way. Don't know how, again, this is all supposition. But nobody tried to use it until Udelhoven did what they were doing, because it was a fully connected system at that point. It's like, yes. And I just don't know. I can't answer that question.
To my question, when you said PLO one will come up by a finite amount of time, what is that finite amount of?
That is not my.
Okay, ask,
PLO one will come offline for a finite amount of time.
Oh, excuse me. I misunderstood your question. Probably during a time period that we would normally not be using POL1 to take either ships or barges. So what'll happen is, and our construction contractor has done this before, and they've been coordinating, in my opinion, really
Yeah.
well with the users and everybody to make sure that whenever we need to do work at the POVI, whether it's the flushing and soaking or the hydro testing or the unbolting or whatever they've been doing out there, they've coordinated it so we weren't impacting operations to the users.
So
It's a day or
let's say
two.
we
Oh,
align it with user. Okay.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly. That's,
Okay. Last question. Will we have to do line flushing again once we've done this?
no.
Okay, so that is complete,
Yeah.
decisively not impacted by reconnecting.
Right.
lines. Okay.
That is correct.
Right.
kind of an apple and an orange. Yeah, but, you know, to Scott's point, we had to do a lot of coordinating with the fuel deliveries to get the line soaking and flushing done. So, you know, we will just use the same behavior to make sure this gets done without interference to anybody.
But what do we think the timeline is of getting it done?
That is. There's factors. The factors involved are, how we get it contracted and the time that it takes to do that. And that's, you know, with Stephen, you know, because we're just the engineers. Once the work gets awarded, whatever vehicle that the port uses to do that, the contractor is going to have to procure some materials, and that's going to take some time. When those materials come in, they're going to then need to come out here, do some measuring, do whatever they need to do, weld up some spools. That's also going to take some time. And then we come to this point where we can have the swap open. And without knowing when when and how the contracting is going to hit the streets and how that's gonna work, because I don't have that answer. I can't tell you when we're gonna be done. But I can tell you that it's probably gonna take perhaps a couple of months after everything gets awarded, simply to get materials up here, and I'm guessing. So, there's gonna be some time to procure materials, and there's gonna be some time to execute the work. And I'm basing this on the contractor that we have been using for some of the other stuff. If they're not selected, time to check.
And have you got an estimate from,
I have spoken to one of the contractors that we've used in the past, and they are currently working on putting together the cost estimate for what they think it's gonna cost to do. So we've identified the scope and, the type of materials that they should be using, how things are supposed to work, and they're putting together a cost estimate for it.
Is there any valves or is it all?
This is all pipe. Well, I say pipe fittings and flanges, there's some things, and there's a moderate amount of electrical, because they've got some heat tracing on some of those lines that is gonna need to be disconnected, and then we think and that is all ancillary. What they're trying to do with the pipe. Everything else goes along for the rest. There's a little bit of insulation that goes on the outside of the heat trace.
I love that. Thanks. Scott, so you talked about, so say we got it contracted August 1st, you're guessing 2 months from that, just throwing that number out there. 2 months, is that pipe, is it any specialty type of pipe? The flanges have those certain ratings, what's the lead time on those flanges, I guess that you've been seeing in your industry potentially for any long lead items
I don't
that you
see
identified?
there is no what I would consider boutique materials in this. So we're talking about regular class flanges. We're not talking about necessarily low temp stuff, or it would be, if it is low temp, it's stuff that's readily available, small bore in Cambridge. We've got some 4-inch stuff. It should be fine.
1,500-pound flanges?
150 pound flanges. They're readily available. We're talking about 4-inch and 2-inch pipe and fittings. So it should be in stock, but I don't know exactly.
Most 4-inch and below are usually are.
They're usually in stock. We're talking about normal size fittings. We're not talking about what would be considered any North Slopes boutique pipe. We're not looking for that. This is just regular A106 grade B and A333. It's standard stuff that should be readily available. But for me to say that somebody's got it on the shelf is, I'm very hesitant, because I haven't looked at future sound. And the one issue that could arise from this is because it needs to be buy American, build American materials. So we can't use anything from overseas.
Bert, did you have a question? I saw your hand up and down.
Yeah, I just, I don't know, I'm kind of leading into the next topic of the timeline. We're kind of headed that way anyway, but I guess my concern is that we need to make this like the highest priority possible to get it done on the fast track, because I just see it really bad as far as the whole project's concerned.
yeah, and no disagreement here, Bert, it's front and center on my to-do list. And Scott and I communicate just about every day, what the status is of some of the preliminary work we have to do. And I'm leaning towards, as I mentioned in that email to everybody, I'm leaning towards, doing some kind of sole source procurement in order to save the time of an ITB and on and on and on, which tends to drag these things out. You guys went through the whole line flushing and soaking ITB ×2, only to come back and sole source the marathon, which was the right way to go in the first place. So if we can avoid that again, that's great. But we will work with the folks in procurement, in the purchasing office, to see what we can do to expedite that part of it. I think that's the long pole in the tent. Everything else, can be, is going to get done relatively quickly, to include the fabrication and installation. The only trick there is, and we've talked about this already, is making sure we can work around uh, any using of POL one, that we'd have to stand down for in order to, accommodate that user use.
Does this affect any P1 proceeding?
As I mentioned last week, the POL one comes offline and is given to the T1 contractor in March of next year.
Yeah, and what I would say to that is, and I hate to make it sound flippant, but there's a lot of time between now and March 2026. So I find it very hard to believe that this could not be accomplished in within that time frame. And it's not summer, winter, fall dependent. We can do this anytime, So I'm pretty confident this will be done in short order. If the materials are here, then it's easy.
Well,
Takes a little
Um,
longer than winter time, but yeah. I think that, because we're all working right here.
Yeah, but it's not a stand down in the wintertime.
That's good.
I have to balance that out and I'm skeptical, Steve. So you were flipping and I'm just gonna balance it out. So there it is.
Anything else?
Not from my end, unless anybody has some questions.
Bert, any other questions?
No, one other thing to keep in mind though is, March is a ways away, but during the winter months, it's probably gonna be very difficult to get a tanker to go to the new port. So there's that factor to consider as well.
Noted.
You may do POL too? Or PCT? Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Point taken, Bert.
Thank you.
So that was the new item 7A.
Okay.
Okay. Item 7B is going to turn the floor over to John Daly, who also everybody knows, to give a construction update. And I guess I will be your slide flipper, John. Yes. Okay. All right.
Actually, that being said, are there any other, board members that have a question or comment before we proceed to the next part of the agenda? All right, John.
Okay, so I've got 4 items and I've got 20 minutes. We could spend an hour on each of the 4 items easily. So I'm gonna probably go pretty quickly. It's gonna start with some schedule updates, a little discussion about the Stevedore building location. Discussion about T2 and the possibility of extending it for a couple of reasons. And then a little bit about the alternative fuel capability location. And I'm gonna have to go fast. I'm certainly willing to spend as much time as required on any of the subjects, but it depends on your agenda and schedule. So let's just go. Here's the overall PAMP schedule. Basically, it shows that we're starting into T1 construction next year. Right now, we're in the submittal phase. We're also going to select a designer for 35% of T2 this year. But that's the major upcoming constructions. And then you can see there will be a T2 construction and some other stuff out into the future there. We can share these slides with you if you want that information. So NES1 is our current major construction project. Here's a slide. Can you guys all see this online?
No.
Nope.
You gotta share your screens too.
Oh, I thought I already did that. My bad. How do I do that now? Let me end the show. Hang on, let me end the show. And,
Here, upper right corner.
That's who needs to share.
No, yeah, hang on a sec.
To share.
All right, let me bring the presentation back up. How about now?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, so NES one is our current major construction project, and here's a couple pictures. They were dredging out there on ship day. Next slide. It's our day for IT issues, I guess.
oh, the little icons aren't showing here.
They're page down on
But no. Yeah, I've already pushed that button and it didn't work. All right, plan B. Ah, there it is.
okay. I thought this was interesting in that, here's a barge full of clay, if you guys are interested in the geology there, but, you know, they have been dredging, silt previously, but now they're into the virgin material, so that's a barge full of bootlegger cove clay. Recently, they changed from a 14-yard to a 7-yard bucket because they ran into this stuff. It's a little harder. And that means they're up near the shoreline dredging some of the older virgin material.
Which is the good news.
Yeah. Next slide. So this is something we've been discussing in the the area that's around the red border there is what they completed last year, and there's actually a fair amount of shoaling in there. So they dredged the whole area, they put the rock revetment in along the shoreline, and then they got, in some places, 20 feet of shoaling, if you can believe that. It filled in over the winter. The very light blue areas in the top are scour areas. So what they did is they compared the survey from last fall to this spring to see what happened over the winter. And we had a lot of stuff moving around in there. It's kind of interesting. So next slide.
Well, can I make a comment and ask a question? You can confirm whether once this is done, then it falls to the Corps of Engineers to maintain it at those depths.
The Corps will maintain their area, but not necessarily what this is. So the Corps' limit, they have a line, and the Corps maintains that line, but it doesn't go all the way to the shoreline.
All the way, it doesn't go all the way to the shoreline,
Right.
but, you know,
Where
navigation channel
Yeah,
is,
and
they
they
will
will
maintain.
continue to
Okay.
do that, but they don't go right up
All
to
right.
the.
Okay.
to the shore.
Yeah.
Next slide.
I should have asked it better.
And so here's a quick schedule for NES one. Basically, in the middle of July, they are going to start, early to middle of July, they'll start placing the rock revetment. And then they're due to be out of here in the fall. It's a simplistic view of it. The main next step is to start rock placement along the revetment. And they'll do that through the end of August, and September, October, they finish up and then they're out of it. Okay, next slide. So T1 schedule, here's a cute little picture that they put together, WSP put together for the T1. That's what it's going to look like when it's done. Next slide. We kind of talked about this already. This year, we're doing submittals and ordering materials. Q2 next year, they're hoping to be up here driving piles. And then they work for basically 4 years. Rough outline of that. Next slide. Electrical substation, that we are trying to award a contract. We're real close to doing that. And we're hoping to do that actually this week. We're hoping to get a signature on the contract. And this shows there's a location for it up near our current admin building, and then an alternative site out on the north end that we're going to look at. Next slide.
But that's the final bit. This is the final determination, I'm sorry.
No, this is a discussion item about where it goes. We're hoping to push it out there because we got a lot of stuff going on in our parking lot out here. Next slide.
And it's totally doable in that new location.
And then here's the schedule for that. We're hoping to start, hopefully within a week or two. The first order of business will be ordering long lead time items, and the electrical are especially applicable to that, because some of that stuff takes 2 or 3 years to order and procure. And then the other part is the site development study that we just talked about. So we'll start in on that right away. The actual construction can wait and lag a little bit because we're going to be waiting for materials. So, next slide, please. So this is the Stevedore building location. We've been working with Matson to try to determine where they would like that. We talked about several alternatives. One was on the north side of the new T1 trestle, south trestle, and the others on the south side. They seem to like this location. So this is kind of for the information of the advisory board, because once we get a kind of a buy-off from Matson, what we'll do is we will ask for a price for the contractor to do soil improvements in this area. And that those are needed to locate the building there. And there'll be a little bit of discussion. The one concern I have is, I'm just telling you where we're at. The contractor has plans now, and it doesn't necessarily include these soil improvements. Some of their plans are for temporary access trestles and things like that. So if they come back and say, this is really going to be a pain because it's going to interfere with our access trestle, the temporary trestles, we may have to talk a little more. But I'm just letting you guys know we're trying to find a site for this, and so far Matson just like this location. Next slide, please.
So just ask Vic if there was anything you wanted to add to that.
No, I mean, we looked at a couple of locations, and this one, in our mind, was also one that was safer. Traffic pattern, I think, for people.
That usually motivates us to figure out how to make it work.
When we decide on a location, we need soil stabilization because it's along the bluff and it's not stable otherwise. And we also need to get a quote from the contractor for that soil stabilization. And that will be a design issue that will come to the board for a decision. Next slide. So this is a series of slides about the upland optimization and the possibility for adding 130 feet to T2. Moffett Nickel worked with both Matson and Toad on some upland layouts, traffic patterns, boundary lines between the lots. And what they determined is this figure here shows a preferred or an optimum layout for Toad that shows traffic patterns that go through primarily mostly open channels, established traffic lanes into the uplands, and it just works out very well if they're in this location. But that would require a bump out to T2. So the next series we'll be talking a little bit about that. Next slide. So if we did that, it aligns these ramps with existing uplands and traffic lanes, and it better accommodates a slight extension of the docks, better accommodates the existing and future fleets. Next slide. It would require a permit modification and additional funds for the dock portion, roughly 130 million. That's assuming we maintain the same standards and
For seismic
and other things. There may be a way that we could offset that if we come up with a different design standard. Next slide. So this is the Toad and Matson current configuration, and roughly the approximation of their traffic patterns. You notice Toad is way to the north, and Matson's in the middle. Next slide. This is the permitted condition, which is if we didn't change anything, we kind of move T3 over a full berth, and it's a 930-foot berth for them. The traffic actually kind of lines up with some buildings and some other things the ramps do, so they're not really well aligned with the uplands. And it's not the end of the world. It's doable. They could come off and make a right angle turn and go into the yards. It's possible. It's just not as nice.
John, are the uplands modifiable in any way?
Absolutely.
Okay, so one solution is we build a bigger dock. The other solution is we change the location of the road.
Correct.
Okay.
And Art, you had a question?
Yeah, just I would argue that a right turn off of the dock is not really doable. When we discussed the upland study, when Moffett and Nichols proposed the previous slide, that does line up. Like that makes sense. Our initial feedback was that the right turn, the 90-degree turn, does not. So, I would just caution saying it's doable. That would be a whole different conversation that we've not had yet on a 90-degree turn.
The cost and impact of potentially realigning the items on the land side. It seems to me like we have a decision about cost and impact of, is it the better alternative to lengthen the dock or the better alternative to move whatever is in the way of the boat going straight, right?
That's exactly the conversation. And then, of course, I would add in the other part is the accommodating the fleet part. So there's
Yeah.
a secondary benefit
Yeah.
if you do this to accommodate
But
the
again, it's
fleet.
the question of, is it a $130 million benefit or no? If there's some other way to make the uplands feasible, I think we just need to explore a few more like other alternatives before we decide what is the right course of action for the change, for a change or potential change.
Yeah, and the way I've phrased this is, I was expecting that conversation to come. And, when we talked with the planners and the users, we said, let's look at this from a planning and engineering perspective, and we know there's gonna be cost and discussion that may not fly, but if we have a good idea and it's good for the long term, we should at least bring it forward for discussion.
And when we have a T2 designer, then we can really get into the weeds on these discussions.
Will the T2 designers, so here Art's point, absolutely, like if the turning doesn't work, it's not feasible, then that's not feasible, this is not on the table, if I hear that correctly, so that means we need to explore the other two options. Will the T2 designer look at the uplands configuration as well, or just the configuration of the dock?
We can ask them to do that. Right now, they've been given a preliminary design, a 15% design to bring forward. And
Well,
it's not it's not cast in stone, I would say.
I guess I would say, I'm not wedded to being them, but if we just, I think I would want to know who is the person who's gonna carry forward to look at the land side alternatives, so we can make a reasoned decision between the possible alternatives to address the issue of homelessness.
And the plan is to give them a copy of this optimization study so they can have that.
So if I could go, there's another, kind of went overboard on some of the slides here.
Actually, figured this out earlier, if the trestle runs straight into a building, it feels like we didn't need a upland transportation optimization study to realize that you can't drive into a building. Like, how did we?
We thought this was a good idea to do this study for exactly that reason. You don't know what you don't know. And you don't know what's within the world of the possible when it comes to, working with the users to change up what the transit yard configurations are. That can solve the problem before you have to do something more dramatic. So,
I think what I would also say is that
yes,
T1 and T2 are now moving south. Right,
yeah,
and so in this, in the optimization study, I was trying to think as hard as it is today.
yeah.
And reconfigure it.
We
in a way
knew,
that works, right?
yeah, we knew we were misaligning the berths, the berths for the users with the transit yards.
So we
And-
wanted this. Either we change the plan for the dock environment. Okay.
We knew there was gonna be friction added by moving the docks. And we tried to minimize
Yeah,
that.
but now's a better time to be dealing with this than it is when you have a brand new dock and you haven't given that any thought beforehand.
Okay, so. Is that enough, Becky? Okay, so, if I-
John, sorry, I did have one question. I guess, I've been asking about the transportation study for this reason as well. when the first iteration came out, we demonstrated clearly that the 90-degree turn does not work. And then, so the proposal was what you have here, the preferred. Was there something that they modeled in between that, didn't require the extension? Because maybe that's what Becky was asking too. I didn't maybe hear the answer, but that was one thing that I was wondering about, because this puts it out of permits and then the additional cost, that original design with the 90-degree turn, was that simply to avoid the physical assets on the dock, or what was the reason that we can't just, why didn't Moffett and Nichols look at a different landside optimization traffic pattern that did not include the 90-degree? It's just like, yeah, obviously this works great, but there's just the increased cost associated with it, and it seemed just almost out of scope. So I'm just wondering, did they provide a different solution that didn't require the dock to be lengthened, that would actually work practically for the traffic pattern?
And we have not done that, and we could ask them to look at that.
Yeah, all the data is available. It makes sense to do that.
Someone is carrying forward the concept of, I think Art and I are saying the same thing, which is, it seems like there's a shoreside alternative that
Right.
reconfigures traffic and the shore and the improvements or use of the shoreside space to allow for the dock to remain the same length that we had
Yeah.
previously projected and permitted, et cetera, while also not requiring an untenable turn for trucks leaving the towed ship. And it looks like we could do that if we move things around on shore, unless I'm totally missing something. But that feels like
Yeah.
the next step we need to see is, what does that look like? And then is there some reason that is an insurmountable hurdle to us doing that?
Yeah, because we did several iterations of that with Matson to figure out what the right angle for trucks coming off of their trestles would have to, once you intercepted. Yeah,
Off the dock, but we
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
want them to.
yeah. So it's not a 90-degree turn. It's a 35, 40-degree turn instead. The tow line,
Or move some things in the uplands.
or move some configurations in the uplands to make space to make those turns, or to go straight. Yeah.
Cost less than-
Yeah.
So that, I agree with all those. The only other mitigating issue is the berth length for accommodating the fleet. And there's a series of slides on that, kind of running low on time, but we could go into that. So, my background, I did a lot of harbor work. I did a fair amount of dock work. The idea of accommodating the fleet is fundamental underlying principle.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize.
And it's interesting to look, I've got probably too many slides on this, I'll go really fast, but if you look back at the history, here's our existing facility. The design vessels were 450 feet long. If you look back at all the plans, which I did, and here's the length of the of each of the berths, and then our current vessels, tote does fit within the T3 berth, but Matson has overgrown it. We've also gone through a scenario where the port originally started down at the south and grew to the north, and they grew to accommodate the fleet and grow. So our existing berth length is 2,700 feet. The current permitted one is 1,800 feet, and if you go with what we call to the study, the preferred one is 1,930 feet. So here's our fleet. Next slide. Container ships. Next slide. Military. Next slide. Cruise ships. The military and the cruise ships are both pretty large. Here we are on a busy day where we have 3 ships at berth. In the future. Well, I guess that's on POL, but in the future we have room for 2. There's a large body of knowledge. The fleet increasing. I looked up both Poet and Matson along with others. Poet and Matson's fleets all increase. Your service life is 20 or 40 years, something in that range. Every time you build a new ship, it's bigger, every single time. And here's the series of vessels that are getting bigger. I would say that the Jones Act ships are maybe a little bit one-off. because they don't maybe keep pace with the international vessels quite as much, but it's undeniable that ships are getting bigger. Next slide, please. And so this really is what perked me to bring this up. These next series of slides are from the designer of record for T2, and they show the fleet on the dock. That was part of their mooring study. So this shows one of the current Matson vessels, the 679, and it works on T1. T1's 870 feet. Next slide. They have a projected ship that's 919 feet that does not work. You could make a case that the lower one works if they have a mooring dolphin, but you can't reach the forward hatches there. And of course, the cruise ships don't fit. If you put a 1,000-foot ship there, it takes up the entire dock, both T1 and T2, so there's no room for anybody else out there. And then the next one was the Bob Hope. So the cruise ships and the Bob Hope are both in the current fleet, and those ships do not fit at the berth. So Bob Hope extends over the berth. So from a planning perspective, I think it's pretty hard to deny that accommodating the fleet would be better. And that the alignment that we showed for tote is a better way forward. So when you look at a 75-year design life, that's where I come back to. I think it's at least worth a conversation to talk about these things. So, there you go.
Yeah, and we just need more definitive data from the designer so we can have an intelligent conversation. I mean, there's going to be trade-offs. There always are when you get into dollar costs that are this big.
This predates me, but did we not consider this when we determined the planned length? I mean, the cruise ship length does not change. It is what it is right now. And all the other existing ships in the fleet that we're talking about. Why we made a decision about the length of, I get that the upland study is new, so that raises a question about the uplands alignment. Although then there we have potentially uplands modification solution. What was our decision-making process when we made the decision about the length of the dock, acknowledging that we have these ships that use the facility that are longer?
I know Eric can probably back me up on this, but a lot of it had to do with what the estimated cost of the whole program was. What is it that we can build with more of a look towards solving the real problem for all of this is a corroding facility that needs to be replaced to accommodate at least the business that we are doing now with very little consideration being given to where we might be 50, 60, 70 years from now. But the length of the dock as it's currently designed gives us room to grow to the north if and when a business case could be made to do that. So having to make that decision from jump, as long as we can design and construct a facility that accommodates the business needs we have now, was not a bad compromise to make, considering what the cost of this was going to be. Now there's plenty of room to the north if there's ever the need to include it later. And also take into consideration the fact that that picture that has everybody at the dock is not what we look like every single day. We solve a lot of those kind of conflict problems by scheduling vessels that aren't here on a regular schedule on a day there's nothing happening. You know that you might come up, you might hit that time when, boy, I wish I had another 200, 300 feet. But that is such an infrequent occurrence around here. We manage around the fact that on Sunday, Sundays and Tuesdays is not a good day to come in. And everybody appreciates that and realizes that, to include the vessel agents. So they know where, not to schedule us a conflict on purpose. So we have operating plans that can mitigate some of this and allow us to manage with the dock the length we're going to have.
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
It does. It sounded like the dock length that we have based on balancing cost, projected future use, and the ability to mitigate some of this length issue
Yeah.
through scheduling. And this, I'm questioning what has changed. And we clearly we made this decision consciously already about dock length. And so it just is surprising to hear a recommendation to reconsider without substantial change in circumstances, which I would see as a change in either use patterns or ability to mitigate rescheduling.
I echo what Steve said, I think that, and also what John said, I mean, there was multiple discussions on the lengths, I mean, you guys, you've got a gentleman for you, about. But multiple discussions, dock is sized for your next vessel, the D7, right? It's not sized for the 900, I think, John, you pulled that 919 off the T1 drawings, right? Because the proposed one on the T1 drawing showed 919. That comes with a draft of 45 feet, I think.
I'm not sure where that number came from, because that's a pretty big shit.
I know, but I know what John got it from. It comes with a draft of like 45 feet, and the current is 35 feet out here, the mud line down at the bottom, and so you'd have to get, I believe, the Corps, somebody to start dredging that down to my 45 to get those larger vessels in there. And that would get Congress to approve that, they'll bring in the larger vessels, and that added into part of the decision on why those.
Well,
vessels coming.
I mean, I agree with that, except for the docks are being designed for that deeper dredge. We're already doing that. Right.
Yes, the docks are designed for
For the
that.
deeper dredge. So that
Yes.
was, my understanding, and I don't disagree with it, was that the decision was made in the Berkowitz administration as a reaction to the cost. That's it.
There.
And I believe that's a fair and true statement.
And then we've got all the records. I mean, it's multiple decisions to get to that. You know, the way the dock is now in John pointed, 200 feet or something. So,
Yeah, and it's just difficult for me to. I mean, I guess you could invert it and say, well, don't say anything about it, just go forward with the decisions that have been made 5 years ago and don't ignore anything that you might see that's an issue.
Yeah.
And so for me, being a designer, having worked on projects, knowing that there's a pretty decent rule with some good reason behind it to accommodate the fleet and to think about the future fleet and to align these things with the uplands, to me, I think that's reasonable and responsible to bring down.
Oh, there'll be, formally, at some point, this group will have that conversation and make a recommendation. And we'll make
Okay.
sure you have all the data to do that.
So we're out of time. I have one.
Well, I was gonna ask, the chair if he was would you entertain a motion to extend the meeting till 2:30? Okay, well, we certainly don't want that.
Okay, I mean,
Or we could put a pin in it
I would put a pin in it and
and pick up where we left off at the next meeting.
Okay.
Because I think this was productive conversation that we had, albeit a little lengthier than we had planned, but that's okay.
that's fine. I mean, anybody else on any other?
Any other board members object to, putting off till the next meeting, the items that were uncovered at this one,
Just pretty much
the alternate fuel capability update?
Ability and then a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I just had a question on when that report's gonna be issued. I mean, we have it on the list, but there's no date.
For the alternate fuel.
Yeah, the fourth or fifth version of it.
So what we do is we have an updated berth occupancy study, which I think we could share. But that doesn't solve the overall issue of the solution. So, I mean, I'd be happy to share that.
Yeah, and I know Ryan is not here today, and part of the solution that we're hoping to get ABI to entertain is replacing their current docksider with one that's a little more efficient, that would act, or a lot more efficient, that will cut down their at berth time. And allow us more flexibility to deal with the petroleum demand that would otherwise happen, when they're monopolizing the place for 2 weeks. So more
Okay, can we-
to come on that. And
Can we-
Ryan's not here today, but I'm staying in touch with him to get the latest. The local folks are more than happy to allow them to manage this, permission from the home office. So he's waiting on that. And Bert, one of the two items you wanted to talk about was to add the PCT to the project critical path, or solving the PCT inactivity for petroleum users piece of it. We will do that.
Okay, can we add this to the agenda as well? And go ahead and issue that report, and then we can talk about the report on the next meeting?
The birth
So, Ryan-
occupancy study report? Yeah.
Yes.
All right, that's another action for me to take. So I'm gonna add the birth occupancy study discussion to the next meeting and email a copy of the report to the board members.
Thank you.
Any other comments from any other board members? Before we close? Do we
Nothing
have a
from me.
schedule for the next meeting?
No, we will have to sit down here, before we adjourn and pick a date for the next meeting. And
I forgot what our rotation.
well, it's currently every other month, but if you think there's enough happening that you'd prefer to do one next month, we can support that if need be.
Well, let's say. That's it. What was I forget was it the second, third Tuesday? I forget.
Well, hang on, let me look at my calendar because I can't do that. It's the third Tuesday of the month, so that would either be July 15th if you want to do it next month, or August. Where are you? 19th.
Board members, anybody have a Art, Bert?
If you opt for
August.
if you opt for August 19th, I'll take on the responsibility of keeping everybody on the board abreast of what's happening in between now and then.
Okay.
Particularly with the POV stripping lines. I know that's
Okay.
uppermost in everybody's mind, and the overall PCT status, which I think is what Bert is really asking for.
Correct.
Yeah.
19th
Bert?
works for me.
Art,
It's in
August-
August 19th, right?
yep,
Yeah, that works.
and
And
is anybody else on there?
Bronson, I know Bronson was waiting for a plane. He was phoning in from the airport, so he may not be there.
All right, so put it up for August.
Okay, August 19th, 1 PM here, and we will have our IT act together.
Yep.
On August the 19th.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, adjourned.
Yeah, that was rough upstairs, so that thing was just went by.
Question. T2, the way T2. You know how we're having to build a portion of the top and then move?
Are we adjourned?
Yes, we are. I'm trying to get out of the PowerPoint so I can formally
So
shut off the
yours is an easier move. Yeah, we'll have to have. Art asked me the question in one meeting at the end of one of the IEOCs. I'm like, no, we don't have to move. And then he's like, are you sure? And he calls me up and I said, let me look into it. Let me just get to T1 first. Then I looked through it. And when the next IEOC they ran into him. And I said, yeah, sorry, I wasn't. When I asked you, I was too busy focused on trying to get T1 awarded. There will have to be a move
I think everybody's gone.
for them.
Who's RN?
How do you move them?
Oh,